Hello everybody and welcome to another one of our leadership training videos. By now I'm sure you know that these leadership training videos are put together just with some ideas, sound bites to help you understand more about what leadership is involving, why and how you can become a more effective leader, why you may want to become a leader, what are the leadership traits, qualities and skills that are needed in order for you to be successful in today's world. And these are not taken out of any theory or booklets or theses. These are taken out of my own personal experience because as Chris Igwe, I have over 35 years experience leading, training and developing teams across 5 major markets, but also primarily in Europe, Middle East and Africa. So this is my own experience. This is what has worked for me. And these are the reasons why I'm successful, not only in my own industry, but within the other areas that I'm involved in, whether it's coaching, mentoring, or indeed just helping businesses grow and develop. So I hope that you will enjoy this particular video. If you do, please feel free to share, like and comment, and more importantly, subscribe to the channel so you know when other videos are becoming available, and equally for you to look at some of the other videos because there are a few that I've already prepared and completed. On each of these occasions, I take one small topic. It may not be small, but it's a topic, and I bring it to life in my own experience and in my own words. So this one that I'm going to talk about, I think is an interesting one from your perspective. I don't know what you think, but what I want to talk to you about is leadership and details. And the way that I've phrased it is this. I've said leadership is in the details. Leadership is in the details. And why do I say that before I go into it in more detail? Well, as you think around, and I thought about this as I was preparing, and I thought, well, there are some leaders who, well known globally, internationally, past, present, who don't appear, or indeed some I know, are not interested in the details. Because on the one hand, especially if they are driving or leading major global corporations, they will have individuals to whom they can delegate it. Now that's okay, but I'll explain to you why you still need to focus on the details. So it may be that that leader, whether he or she is an amazing leader in their own right and in their own way and successful, it may be that this does not apply to them. You may say, well, they're not at all interested in the details. It's more about growing influence. It's about motivating. It's about creating the vision. It's about influencing people's thoughts and ideas to take them to the next level. Now that might be true, but I'd like to think that at some stage they started by understanding the details. Now what do I mean by details? So let's break it down for a few moments now. Well, on the one hand, details, it's about the figures. How are the figures, the financials if you like, how are they put together? How are they built into a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet? What are the formula that are being used? In some cases there are formula that are being used to generate figures that help you understand. What are the assumptions that have gone into that financial model or have gone into that strategic model that might be created? What were the analyses that were used and who is using those? Do you have a research person? Do you have somebody who's really focused on the figures? Do you have somebody in human resources, in finance, who built up those figures? If so, what is the basis of the analysis and how does it all come up? And this is not just for the CFO, by the way. Yes, the CFO, if you have one, may be the person who puts these together, but there are still underlying assumptions on the figures, the formula, the assumptions. What is the data that is being collected? How do you know that this information being put together in the P&L, the profit and loss statement or document, is sufficiently well-founded? What did they draw on? So how do you put that together? And then what are the output and the results that you were expecting or you were told to expect? So if you don't understand that, it's very difficult to lead at the top level because you could be going in absolutely the wrong direction. So detail is absolutely critical and important. And I remember when I was involved, I was head of real estate for 2 major global brands, Foot Locker and Gap. And it was fascinating because the retail teams basically within the stores focused very, very heavily on the data and information that came out. As a result, they were able to assess and track not only their own P&L for the store, but also it could be the district manager, the regional manager, of course the sales manager, and so on up the food chain. So everybody was able to see, based on a particular store location, in a shopping center, in a high street, in a retail park, maybe in an outlet center, how are they performing on each and every day? And how do you read that data? How do you understand it? So whether you are the CFO or the head of sales, EVP, VP, global head, it doesn't matter. Everybody was basing their assessment on the information that they were getting and how that store was performing, not only top line in terms of sales, but bottom line in terms of profitability. Now, they couldn't have done that without understanding each of these elements and components, and then what the output and data was telling them. So if there's a day when there's a strike or the store was closed for whatever reason, that would have an impact, and they assessed it year on year. So detail is very important. So of course you may say, well, that's great, but why should I bother about it? I'm a leader in my team or my department or my entire company. Well, here are some of the reasons. None of them are rocket science, as you can imagine, but they're important to think about. The first is you're going to make decisions. Remember, you are the leader. You cannot make decisions unless they are based on clear, fundamental information, because those decisions will affect the strategy. What direction strategically do you want to go on? So if those output and results do not give you what you want or need in terms of strategy, that's a problem. Maybe the resources, whether it's supplies that you need to make or whether it's resources in terms of staffing and teams and so on, you'll need to know what those resources are that you may need to hire people in. There may be operational aspects to your business, which are literally how the business runs. So whether it's a manufacturing facility or whether it is a consultancy service, you'll still need to know operationally how do all those pieces move together and how do they work. So there are really important decisions that you need to make, and therefore you need to understand what those figures are and how they come together. You need to challenge the assumptions, and this is really important as a leader, which is why I say there may be leaders who you think about today and you say, well, he or she doesn't really pay any attention to the numbers or the detail because that's not their thing. Maybe, but I bet you any money you like, they will be challenging the assumptions if those assumptions don't fit the strategic plan and idea that they have got in their own mind to get them there fast enough and profitably enough, whether building top line, sales, or profit. So they will challenge, and you should challenge the assumptions, but you can only do that once you know more about the details. And then the final one is what's called stress testing. In other words, if those assumptions or those output and results, instead of being 100% of whatever you wanted, it comes in at 75%. What is the impact? What does that do around these decisions that you're going to make? So stress testing is basically where if something goes wrong, so there's something you haven't included from a geopolitical level, to a local level, to a national level, to a supply level, what impact is that going to have? So you will be saying, well, if this is 75% less, then there's going to be a problem. Again, going back to my example of when I worked with retailers and brands, whenever I put a deal on the table for the board to approve, we would always look at it and say, okay, what happens if we don't hit those numbers? What is the impact on that P&L that we're presenting to the board? So sales are not 100% in year one, for example, or even when it first starts, it is 50%, let's say. What is the impact of that? Well, probably if you do many of those, then your job will be on the line. So you've got to get it right, which is why going back to the assumptions, you need to understand how those are built up. So at the end of the day, these are some of the areas to consider, which is why the detail is important. But at the end of the day, leadership is about the buck stopping at you. You are the one who has created this business, or you are the one who is leading this team, this department, this geography, whatever it happens to be, but the buck stops at you. So you cannot wake up one day and say, I'm the leader, but I don't need the details. I've got so-and-so to look after the details. No, you put so-and-so in place so that he or she takes care of the major elements, if you like, of putting that information together that you understand it. But you are the one as the leader who makes the executive decision to go in direction A or B or not at all based on what you know, and you cannot make a decision until or unless you know the fundamentals of how it's built up. So I hope this has left you with some thoughts and ideas. Go away, think about it, add to any of those comments and thoughts that I've made, but they're just the highlights and headlines in terms of what you can do to achieve. So please feel free to like, share and comment, and I hope to see you again very soon. But subscribe to the channel so you know when other videos are becoming available, and you can check on the previous ones that have gone out before. So until next time, thank you.